or with the weather. So tonight we're going to do a little bit of a modified version of that. So we will have to have Dr. Gibson come back to actually, I think, give us our official training. But Mr. Jarrett and I talked over the weekend, and we put together something that is a little bit like kind of using the framework of Dr. Gibson's presentation that I think he was going to give us to really talk about the sort of good governance, the balanced district scorecard, and then us as a board, what do we want to see as our priorities, regardless of, it's kind of hard to think, but regardless of who's sitting in these seats and who's sitting in the superintendent seat, the balanced district scorecard is developed as sort of that strategic framework that guides what staff does. And so tonight is to really talk about, again, governance, what our role is in this, the balanced district scorecard, and then, again, ultimately trying to give some idea of collectively what we think from the balanced district scorecard are those items that we really see as important for the district at this point. And I'm not going to suggest that we're going to get all the answers tonight, but I think we can probably come to some pretty good, through the discussion, have a good idea of what we think is important, because I think as right now, Mr. Jarrett would agree, we don't necessarily, we just do things as a district, and we need to know what it is that we need to be looking at kind of going forward. So with that, again, the two takeaways I think is for us to refocus on the balanced district scorecard and make sure that that becomes something as a board we commit to, and that's something that we look at and use regularly to kind of guide our decisions. Becomes more of an objective discussion rather than a subjective discussion. And I'm not going to say that the subjectivity won't enter into things occasionally. But we have a document that should keep us grounded when it all kind of boils down. And then second, again, the takeaway from this would be to understand, what are the things that we feel need to focus on, and then hear from Mr. Jarrett in his role as an administrator, interim superintendent, as to how that aligns with what either we're doing or initiatives that we're looking at. So, so Mr. Jarrett put together this presentation for us, and he gave everybody a copy of it. I know no one's seen this ahead of time. Matter of fact, he's been working on it up until about 30 minutes ago, I think, right before we started this meeting. So he scrambled to put something together for us just to kind of reframe, refocus, and get us beginning of the school semester, and before we get too much further into the year, as we come into budget, graduations, and all that we don't lose our time and energy in the wrong direction. So, Mr. Jarrett, do you want to add anything to that?
No, this was a lot of fun. So as Mr. Byer said, Dr. Gibson couldn't be here tonight. And we both agreed that starting a new semester, me sitting into this new role, it's important that we're all on the same page, having the same conversations and focus on the same things as much as possible. And so I really first want to commend the board in their initial work when developing this scorecard idea. To be quite frank, when it first came out, I was trying to wrap my head around where are we trying to get to. But the part that I think is important is that it wasn't just designed with one person in mind or one department in mind. It included parents, it included staff, it included the board. And what I found to be beneficial is the attempt to really get ourselves grounded into the right things and not everything. Public schools are there's so many moving parts in it. And sometimes it's easy to get mired into the thing that we feel we're comfortable with, or perhaps the thing we're passionate about. But the scorecard helped us make better decisions that align to the 4 entities that were identified by our board. So bear with me in my presentation as this was a winter breeze presentation put together. So one of the things that Mr. Breyer and I talked about is, as we talk about board and superintendent, I think what's important is that it's a team effort. And it's not saying that individuals don't have things that they're passionate about and they shouldn't be passionate about. I think that's important. I don't think that it's about group thinking. I don't think it's about one person saying, you know, this is the only thing we're going to focus on. But we have to get to a point where we come to collective agreements. And those collective agreements require sometimes disagreement too, and that's okay. But I will say that this work ultimately puts us in a fork in the road at all times. And the fork in the road can make us choose whether we go to an individual stance or a collective stance. And so that's kind of what this graphic is about. How do we make a right and be on the team when it comes down to making a decision that's good for our students, staff, stakeholders, and stewardship, versus going to the left where we only make a decision based on one entity, which may be students in isolation or staff in isolation or stakeholders or stewardship. And so that's really what that is. So in Dr. Gibson's presentation, he talks about the 4 stages of alignment of systems. And stage 1 is reacting to problems. Stage 2 is early systematic approaches. Stage 3 is aligned approaches. And stage 4 is integrated approaches. And I'm going to show you a graphic because I think this graphic really tells the tale of the difference between the stages. So in that first stage, when it talks about reaction, you notice that the arrows are going in multiple different directions. And as a former, and I will say former recovering high school principal, that's how I felt when I first walked into the role as a brand new high school principal. Because I had 150 staff members, I had almost 2,700 students, and I had every single department that possibly makes a school district run, but at a campus level. And when I walked in there, everybody had an idea about what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And there was varying opinions all over the place. And what started happening is that if I would have sat there and listened to the ones I wanted to listen to, somebody was going to be left out and somebody was going to be ignored. So I had to also